My name is Steve Peter. I'm a Vietnam combat veteran. I served with the United States Army 1st Cavalry Division. I was a helicopter door gunner with the 227th Assault Helicopter Battalion, 1966 and 1967. I saw action in the Ai Drang Valley, north of Pleiku, and I am proud to have served my country. Today at this breakfast, we are reminding ourselves that together as veterans, all of us, we are all proud to have served. No matter where you served or what you did, your uniform puts you in harm's way. Those who would love to hurt you and destroy our way of life are always knocking on the door. Even today, amid world terrorism and even worse, domestic terrorism, our military is on guard. I salute the men and women of our armed forces for their commitment to freedom. They are a new breed of American warriors. Let's not forget them. Also today we come together to honor those who have served before us. And now I have one other thing before I introduce our guest speaker from the Governor of Massachusetts. Commonwealth of Massachusetts, a proclamation. Whereas, since the Commonwealth's colonial days, thousands of men and women have served our country in defense of freedom and liberty. And whereas, on November 11, 1918, the armistice was signed by the Allied nations in Germany, ending World War I, the war to end all wars. After 4 years of conflict. And whereas since that day, every November, people from around the nation have gathered to honor our veterans, and whereas there are approximately 388,000 veterans living in Massachusetts, and whereas today we are reminded of the great sacrifices and contributions our veterans have made to our country, and whereas we honor and salute those who served our country throughout the generations with honor, patriotism, and courage. And whereas it is appropriate that all Massachusetts citizens remember the bravery of those who served their country, so that their dedication and sacrifices serve as a reminder of the cost of our freedom. Now, therefore, I, Charles D. Baker, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim November 11, 2017 to be Veterans Day.
Marie, can you give me a ride home?
The proclamation is signed by the Governor, Lieutenant Governor Nancy Guido, and William Galvin, the Secretary of State. I'll put it on display in front of the podium here in case you want to see it.
Hearing aid.
And now,
I can't hear anything.
without further ado,
The hearing aid, right?
I would like to introduce our guest speaker, the Veteran Service Agent from Milford, Massachusetts, Mr. John Milford.
Thank you, Commander. Steve came up to see me about a month ago, and he said, John, we've run out of good speakers for our events. He says, would you mind speaking at our next Veterans event? And I said, sure, I still try. So here I am. And the other condition, he said, is no longer than an hour. So I'll keep it to 50, 55 minutes. Okay, all kidding aside. I've done this once before here, and it was quite a while ago, so I'm a little rusty. I don't usually do speaking, and I want to clarify that this will not be a speech, it's going to be a presentation. And by that I mean I'm going to try to explain veterans' benefits, both the program that I work for, as well as the federal program. It's about the biggest confusion that I have encountered since I've been Veterans Agent, and before I say that, I'll just give you a little background. I think a lot of you know who I am. I graduated from Milford High School, in '56, in the era of Joe Grillo, Al Rossetti, and probably a couple of other people around here. After that, I went to college. After college, I went in the Army in 1959. I joined the Army in 1959, and I served for 3 years. 1 year in the States and 2 years in France. And that was considered Cold War. I'm not a combat veteran like a lot of the rest of you here. When I got back from the service, I went to work for an insurance company for 3 years, and then I went into education. And I spent 22 years at Milford High School, and shortly thereafter, upon an early retirement, I was appointed as the Veterans Agent in Milford in 1990. So I'm going into my 27th year. So let's see if I can explain. And like I say, the purpose of this is to inform you of some benefits that you may be entitled to. There's a gentleman here who heard a presentation that I had given several years ago, and I said, Gino, I'm not going to mention your name. He says, go ahead, I don't care. Well, anyway, after the presentation, Gino came up to the office and he said, you know, John, you mentioned something during that presentation about benefits, and he says, I'm wondering if I'm entitled. And sure enough, he was. So he's one of my products. And of course, I think there's some other people here. Well, anyway, to clarify the distinction between the two programs, and we get this quite often. And by the way, our office is in the town hall, room number 1, bottom floor, and I am privileged to work with a great partner. Her name is Janet Flumier. She's not with us today because she's on her way back from Hawaii after visiting a couple of weeks with her daughter. So hopefully she'll arrive tomorrow and she'll be at the office on Monday. Which, another explanation, I am a part-timer, so I'm there 3 days and she's there 3 days. However, whatever goes on a daily basis, we keep what we call a daily journal. So if you were to call or come in and discuss something with her, she would make a journal entry so that the next day when I come in, I knew that you were there, what you spoke about, and we can continue. And the same goes with me. If I meet with someone on my day, I make an entry, let her know so that there's a continuity. You can call, you don't have to repeat what you did and so forth. And it has worked very well over the last 10 or 12 years that she's been with me. Okay, so now to get back to this clarification, about 150 years ago, our legislators in Boston thought that it would be nice if we had a program that would provide services for veterans in a private and dignified manner. And by that I mean in private offices. So they instituted this program called Chapter 115 of the Massachusetts General Laws. It's a mandated program, which means every city and town in Massachusetts must provide the services. Now they can either do it with a full-time person or they can do it in districts, but they must provide the services. On rare occasions, we will have people come in our office and say to us, oh, I went to my veterans agent in another town and he said to me or she said to me, you know, we've used up all of our money in the account and we won't be able to help you until the next fiscal year. There's no such situation. It's mandated. That person who was denied can go to an adjoining town and they'll fill out an application, send it into Boston. Boston will pay the veteran and they will deduct that. Now, when I say Boston, that's where our main office is. We're like satellite offices in these little communities. And everything we do must be authorized by them. The main reason is because for every dollar that we give to a veteran or their dependents, and when I use the term veterans, I'm also including dependents. So every dollar that we give out to a veteran, the state of Massachusetts reimburses us 75 cents. So, for example, our budget in Milford is in the vicinity of about $300,000 per year. And that net cost to Milford is about $75,000, which is a minimal expense for a great program. Now, the program is what is called need-based. In other words, it is not based on your military accomplishments. You can be a highly decorated military person and not be eligible or qualify for our benefits, because the intention was to be of a financial assistance, and the intention was also to be temporary. However, over the years, because our budget that is established by the state has increased greater than Social Security benefits, most of the people that are on our rolls are retirees, widows, and so forth, living on minimum income from Social Security. So although the program was intended to be temporary to help someone who was having a hard time, many of the people that we have are on our rolls until. But in conjunction with those, we also have the returning veteran who comes in to identify themselves, leave a copy of their discharge with us, and ask some questions of benefits that they may be entitled to. Now, like a typical interview would be, someone would come in our office and they get there different ways. They may be in the building paying their taxes, and they see the little sign over our door, Veteran Services, and they'll look in and they'll say, hey, what do you guys do? So we say, come on in. And by the way, we will talk to anyone who comes in the office, or if we're with someone, then we would prefer that you make an appointment, or you can call. And by the way, anything that I am repeating here by way of numbers, don't worry about having to remember them, because if you have any questions, simply give us a call. We do not take applications over the phone. However, if you wanted to get an idea of something, just give us a call or stop in. So once they're in our office, then we go through it's like a two-stage process. We call it eligible and qualified. Now, to be eligible, you must be a resident of Milford or whatever town you're going into. You must have an honorable discharge, and you must have served, a minimum of a period of time in the military. We do not provide benefits to the National Guard, the old National Guard, not the current National Guard. Because as we all know, that's where most of our troops are coming from now. Now, if you're in the Guard now and you're deployed, the moment you're deployed, you're automatically a veteran. But I'm talking about those that are familiar with Guard when it was only like a 6-month training purposes, and then you had to do monthly meetings and so forth. So we do not service those types of people, only veterans. So anyway, getting back to eligibility, must be a resident of the town, must have an honorable discharge, and served a certain period of time. Then it comes to, do you qualify? Because just about 99 9/10% of every veteran in Milford is eligible, which means they live in the town, they have an honorable discharge, and they're served during a certain period of time. They're eligible. But now to qualify, because it is need-based, it means your income and your assets must be below our standards. The state issues a budget every year, and it's uniform throughout the state. It doesn't matter what town you live in or what city, it's uniform throughout. So if you were to go from Milford, relocate in Worcester, we can just transfer your benefits, and vice versa, someone come into our town. Now, roughly speaking, just roughly speaking, if you were an individual and you were retired and living on Social Security and maybe a little pension, the allowance that the state makes for you per month is about $1,700. What we do is we match that figure with your income. So we would say, and what are you receiving from Social Security and retirement? So let's say that the figure again is $1,700, which you're allowed from the state, and that person's income is $1,500. We would supplement that person's income by $200 a month. But then in addition to that, we also have a medical benefit, which means usually people who are receiving Medicare people who are receiving Social Security usually have Medicare, the health program, deducted from their monthly check. And it's usually in the vicinity of $105. For that person who qualified for the financial assistance, we would also reimburse them their $105 for Medicare. We would also reimburse them if they're carrying a Medigap insurance plan, and we also reimburse them for any co-pays that they pay for their doctor, dentist, or prescriptions. So it's an excellent program. Now, we do get on occasion someone who come in and their income is a little greater than their allowance. So we'll say to them, you're not entitled to financial assistance. However, we have another whatever you call, another level, sounds like, well anyway, we have another level of qualification. That's probably what I was looking for. And that is higher than the financial allowance. So it's possible for someone to come in and their income is either the same or greater than their allowance, yet they may qualify for medical only. So we won't be giving them any financial assistance, like a subsidy, but we will reimburse them for their Medicare, Medigaps, co-pays, and so forth. Just as a reminder, this is one of the brochures that the state program hands out, and it looks like Uncle Sam, and he says, I owe you. So I'm just going to review some of the things that are mentioned in here. For example, it says, some of the state benefits are an annuity. Well, the only thing about an annuity, it's only available to people who are receiving 100% service-connected compensation from the federal program. Remember I said at the beginning, I'm going to try to distinguish between the state program and the federal. I work for the state. This is a state benefit, but only to people who are receiving 100% service-connected compensation from the federal program. Bonuses. I think just about everyone in here received a bonus when they came back. Either the World War II veterans, Korean veterans, and Vietnam veterans. And that still exists for the current wars we're encountering at present. Cemeteries. I think you're probably familiar with the cemetery down in Bourne. That's a federal cemetery. But Massachusetts has two of its own state cemeteries, Agawam and Winchton. And the criteria for being buried there are about the same, as they are for born. And the reason that the state did that is because of the location of the federal, which is down at the Cape. They wanted to have some located more in the western part of the state. Then we get into the Chapter 115 benefits, and that's the program that I work for. Education benefits, there are probably some in here that have used them. I know I used them, the education benefits to get one of my degrees. Employment, we used to have the unemployment office located in Milford on Fortune Boulevard, and they've relocated somewhere else. Housing services, one of the big missions for both the state and the federal government is to eliminate homelessness. So once someone comes to our office and says to us, I'm either homeless or on the verge of homelessness, we must react immediately. And in fact, I got a call. We work very closely with a lot of agencies in town, and one that we work very close with is the Milford Housing Authority. So I had a call from them last week, and she said, I had this fellow come in, and he said he was going to be homeless. She asked me if I was familiar with the person. I said yes. And then when I called back, she said, you know, we are put on alert as much as you are, that when someone comes to us and mentions that they may be homeless, we must react. So that's the big mission of both the state and the federal government. Motor vehicle benefits, some of you probably have veterans plates. Some may have disabled plates and so forth. That's all handled through the motor vehicle registration. Outreach centers, that's where people go for counseling. And then we have some other programs. So that, kind of in a nutshell, is the state program that I work for. And then I'm just going to try to highlight some of the benefits and services of the federal program. What I always say, and Janet, again my partner, is we don't take on the responsibility of any other agency. When someone comes in and says, can I get into Milford Housing because I'm a veteran? We say, please go down to Milford Housing and ask them. We don't want to misdirect you. When someone comes into our office and says, do you think I'm entitled to a service-connected compensation? We say we don't want to encourage you, nor do we want to discourage you. We will help you file an application and let them decide. God forbid if I ever said to someone, oh, I don't think you are entitled to a benefit, and they find out down the road that they were. I don't want to live with that. So every time someone comes in, I'll say to them, if it's a question about the program I work for, I'll try to get an answer for you as soon as possible. But with the federal people, very bureaucratic, very big, it's all paper generated, so it's all by application. The two main categories that we assist veterans with in the federal programs are service-connected compensation, and one of the areas within that is Agent Orange in Vietnam. And there's a lot of fellows in here who have probably been affected by it. So what we do is we will assist them in filing the application. And we also go to their service offices. The Veterans of Foreign Wars, they have service officers who help fill out applications. Disabled American veterans, they have service representatives that help with the application. We have a contact in Boston that helps with that. So we will help file applications for service-connected compensation. And what that basically means is that the veteran has an illness or an injury now that he or she can relate back to their military service. For example, they may have diabetes, and they were stationed in Vietnam and exposed to Agent Orange. That is called a presumptive illness. In other words, if you have diabetes now, and you were stationed in Vietnam, and you were exposed to the herbicide, it's more than likely that it was causing what you have. And the federal government will compensate that veteran anywhere from 0% up to 100%. 10%, I believe, is about $133 a month. 100% is close to $3,000 a month. Okay? And then once you receive 100% status, that opens up all the benefits that the federal government has. The other area that we usually assist veterans with the federal benefit is their health card. And what they do is they'll come to us and they'll say, I have health insurance, but I heard that the premiums for prescriptions are not as high as from my company. So we will enroll them, we will help them get enrolled in the health plan. And once they're enrolled, they can go to any facility in the United States and they can also get their prescriptions from them. And last but not least, the latest area that we're working with veterans is in aid and attendance in assisted living facilities. Whitcomb House is an assisted living facility. Blair House is an assisted living facility. Cornerstone is an assisted living. So we have 3 assisted living facilities in Milford, and close by we have Atria and Hopedale. So if a veteran and or widow and or spouse is interested in relocating from their current residence into an assisted living facility, the federal government has a stipend of $1,700 for the veteran, $2,000 for the veteran and spouse, or $1,000 for the widow. Now what that means is they will reside now in an assisted living facility, and the rates there are in the range of $4,500 per month, up to 6 or 7, depending on the care that you're receiving. And the federal government will provide a stipend called aid and attendance of $1,700 to the veteran alone, $2,000 to the veteran and spouse, or $1,000 per month to the widow. That's it as far as veterans benefits. The next thing that I'm going to show you is like an aside from that, and it's in regard to some of the other things that go on in town. Now, I don't know if you've seen these in town, but over the years we have about 85 of them located throughout Milford. I know Nick DeMaria knows what they stand for, but this was the original Veteran Square sign that we had in honor of servicemen who were killed in action. The only thing about it was not too many people knew what it was, unless you were, related to a family or so. So about a year ago, we decided to change both the composition. This is made out of wood, and over the years it would deteriorate. So we decided to change the style, the composition, as well as the style. And we went to this. So now we have these that are a replacement, and it gives you more of an indication what they're for, because we have the veteran's name, we have the flag up above, We have the branch of service that they were in, as well as the war period. This happens to be the replacement of one that was knocked down on the corner of Cook Street and East Main Street. So this is going to be going up pretty soon. But this is what all the others look like. Now, in addition, on Route 109 and Route 85, these were put up by the state. They were called interchanges of plaques for veterans who were killed in action. This was our latest casualty, Elia Fontecchio, in Iraq. This is on Route 109, both entering Milford and leaving Milford. Again, on Route 109, just beyond McDonald's on the right, is the Thomas Hutner Square. Coincidentally, this man is still alive. At one time, he was my boss. He was Commissioner of Veteran Services in Boston. And more locally, he served with Dr. John Bottolato in the Navy. He's the recipient of the Medal of Honor, the highest award. About 10 years ago, our state representative, I think Marie Parenti, saw to it that we also honor our Milford veterans. So on Route 85, both entering Milford and leaving Milford, we have these signs. This one. And this veteran is from another town, but he's also on Route 85, the recipient of the Medal of Honor. These are replicas of the signs that are a little bigger than this. And last but not least, I would like to personally thank Amy Donahue, who's in charge of the Scouts in Milford, because during Memorial Day weekend, they go out and flag over 2,000 veterans' graves.